Today, we're remembering 3 class members via their gifts and legacies to us. Pauline and John Fisher and Irene Gross, creative peace activists, each in their own ways, a multitude of ways. First, Irene, and then the Fishers. Some of you may have used the link sent on Thursdays in John's email, or to recall or learn about Fisher Terrace, their children's gift to remember their legacy. Irvin will lead us in a remembrance of his colleague in the English department, and then we'll explore the terrace. But Irene was loved by so many for her hospitality, her wide-ranging interests in the world around her. Food, movies, students of all ages, all language learners, widows and widowers. I don't know if any of you, I went to, she used to do a Tuesday gathering for widows, and another time it was for widowers.
And orphans.
And orphans, okay, I missed that. She visited hospitalized members, sent cards, and for a time, flowers on behalf of all of us. Irene took on the role to keep us updated with hospitalizations and deaths of class members. Yes, sojourners have illnesses, joint replacements, and die. However, that's not all that happens. I'm standing in front of a group of creative, wise, and learned folks who carry out remarkable activities. Mostly, it's a well-kept secret. Those activities are a well-kept secret from other class members, unless you're in their soup group or a book club or a spouse, maybe a neighbor. I began thinking about how our announcements, including our living, as well as our dying and illnesses, could be, might include some of these activities. How might we encourage and inspire each other in our living and be better acquainted with those who regularly fill this space? I'm not talking about speeches. Maybe it's a photo of a quilt design, a book recommendation, or knowing about volunteer activities that happen. I talked with John and Marty Bender about this. John thought a bit and then said, woo-woo. What's up with us? That's what we're going to call it. I mean, so announcements. Woo-woo. Phyllis Miller was the first to inquire who would fill Irene's role to update us. If someone sees a need, they're then first in line to respond or volunteer. And Phyllis, you've said yes. So tell us how you envision, how you going to step into, but it's a transition. It will be different then.
And I thought it would.
Well, however you want to say it.
Phyllis has already mentioned some things that we've been talking about. There has been a lot of activity about how our sojourners class could connect with each other in a new way. The idea is to let each other know what we're involved in, besides who is ill, and important as that is also. We have divided our members into area groups. It was so good to have 4 members answer yes, they will help us. Amy Schwarzentuber, Len Geiser, Marina Penner, and Barb and George Snooker have agreed to work with individual groups. You'll be hearing more about this in the coming weeks. And I should add, John Hertzler has done a lot of work already in helping to divide these groups. So we envision it working both through announcements in the classroom and also coming by email. I'll quickly let you in on what I have learned from several members just recently. Rachel Hartzler is in the process of writing the history of the Ted Rowe Mennonite Church in Wauseon, Ohio, where she grew up. Janet and Mark Rosenberry have a son and daughter-in-law living in Hawaii, where they grow over 500 pineapple plants, as well as other fruits. What fun that would be to purchase some of it. Many of you are probably aware that Joanne Smith writes letters that are published in the Goshen News each month. Len Geiser recently brought 18 containers of Smith's ice cream back from Orville, Ohio. His hometown. And he is sharing them, some of them at least, with friends.
Well, I'm in trouble now.
Jenny Schwarzentuber collected and made 2 lovely arrangements of thistles recently. Leonard Gross is home from a hospital stay, happy to be home, but has limited energy due to heart conditions. His daughter Valerie is here for several weeks. Elton and Helen Baumberger will be moving from Manor 4 to assisted living later this summer. And Don and Marie Clemens will be leaving us in the fall to live year-round in their Sarasota home. We're pleased that Julia Byler continues to make progress from her stroke of several months ago. Most of us remember Dirk Vardaman, Lind. He now lives in a group home east of Middlebury and will not be attending our class anymore, as he did before COVID began. Judy Beachy in Colorado enjoys being on our Zoom sessions and participates with a similar group at the local Presbyterian church. Just listen to how active and interesting our class members are. I'm not sure how all this reporting will work out. Stay tuned and we'll see.
Woo woo.
We're waiting for more ice cream announcements.
He knows all about it. He's going to say, and we want recipients.
My wife sometimes says I mumble. So I'll put this speak loud. I hope you've read that wonderful article on the web. I will try to add some details to it that you may or may not have known. Many of you can add more details about your knowledge of John and Pauline, your interactions with them over time, especially John Letterock, who became very close to them in Waterford Crossing when they both lived there. Well, John and Pauline Fisher were able to use their careers as English teachers to promote peace in Ireland and elsewhere. They came from unusual Mennonite families, somewhat privileged families. Pauline Clemens Fisher grew up in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. Father was a very successful banker. He also descended from the Rittenhouse family, which was one of the first Mennonite immigrant families to colonial America. Pauline was an only child. She entered Goshen College as a student in 1944, where she met John Fisher Jr. His family came from Iowa. They were privileged in the sense that his mother and father were well educated. His mother had a master's degree in English literature, and his father graduated from Goshen College in 1913, extremely early. And probably a little known fact among us, he was also professor and dean of Goshen College from 1916 to 1923, when the college was closed down by the conference. He, of course, left Goshen. He eventually took a rather lifetime position in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, which was then a teacher's college, I think, and taught there until his retirement. John also was an only child. He grew up Methodist in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. He probably entered Goshen College a year earlier than Pauline, 1943, because in his second year at Goshen College, he was drafted and he went into CPS, which was a formative experience for him, as it was for so many other Mennonite young men of that generation. His first assignment was in Powellsville, Maryland, doing conservation work. Then, after a year, he was transferred to Ypsilanti, Michigan, to the mental hospital, where quite a few COs worked. It was during his time at Ypsilanti that he and Pauline became engaged. Of his CPS work, he says he appreciates, okay, first I'm going to promote this book. Do you all have this book? Detour Main Highway, Our CPS Stories, was published during the peace activist movement here at this church. It contains the stories of over 40 members of this church who served in CPS, and they described their work in CPS. But it also includes the stories of 15 who, out of sympathy with their young men friends, entered voluntary service while their friends were in CPS. It's a very moving account, especially if you know the people who are represented, and many of you would know very many of the people in the book. How many of you know about this book or have a copy? Well, I see 3, 4. Good grief. This is a important inheritance of the peace position of Goshen College.
What's the title?
Mennonite Church.
What's the title?
Detour Main Highway, Our CPS Stories.
How do we get
It's
it?
probably in the library. It's out of print. Anyway, I suggest you find that and read it if you haven't. In his account of CPS, He says what he benefited from was work, being in a gospel quartet, working in the emergency room, playing basketball, studying the Bible, and meeting many other people from different persuasions in that conscientious objective group. Familiar, right? But he was one of those who benefited in terms of a peace witness from that intense personal experience. 1948, John and Pauline graduated from Goshen College. Now, they made a wonderful couple in my experience. Pauline was a jolly person and sometimes hilarious, right? Overboard. John was understated and witty, and together they navigated the world as a wonderful couple. After graduating in 1948, they went to Philadelphia for graduate study for John at the University of Pennsylvania. While he was in university, Pauline taught English in secondary schools there, and her whole career was in teaching English from then on in Middlebury, Goshen, Bethany, junior high, senior high, until she retired. 1948 to graduate school. In 1953, John returned to Goshen College as professor of English. Now, he never finished his PhD. He never finished, I guess. I don't know if he finished his dissertation. We can't find a copy of it, but he never finished his PhD for some reasons, which I won't go into. However, the dissertation that he worked on was very formative in his interest in Irish studies and in peacemaking in Ireland, because his subject was Jonathan Swift, an important English poet and writer from the 1700s in Ireland, at a time when Ireland was a colony of England. And so the problems that are present in Ireland today were present in the 1700s when Jonathan Swift was writing and John was studying context and the work of Jonathan Swift. Never finished his PhD, but we always said that doesn't matter. We regarded him as the smartest among us in terms of literary questions. If we had any questions, we went to John. So it didn't inhibit his professional career. His special teaching interest was poetry, especially Irish. From Jonathan Swift in the 1700s, he went on to study the poetry of William Butler Yeats, who was writing during the Irish Revolution early in the 20th century. Yeats won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1923. And then he continued with contemporary Irish writers, especially Seamus Heaney, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1995 and writes out of the context of the still current issues in Northern Ireland and Ireland, which again, John Letterock understands very well. Now, the amazing thing about John and Pauline was their incredible ability to introduce themselves to strangers and become their friends. They had that personal knack, and I think it's because they were very sophisticated people. They were well informed, and they had a genuine interest in everybody they met. So that John even became a close personal friend of Seamus Heaney, this great current, well, he's dead now, this great recent Irish writer, to such an extent that he persuaded Seamus Heaney to come to Goshen College and give one of the essay Yoder lectures. In fact, we have a marker to the south of Newcomer Center. We planted a tree in Haney's honor, and there's a brass marker about the event. Beyond that, he also one time persuaded 6 other prominent Irish writers to appear on the Humble Center stage. He had an incredible way to make himself known. That also helped him in his many classes that he took to Ireland, both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. He sort of operated from the seat of his pants. Yes, he had an agenda, but not a strict sequence. So they rode bicycles. Sometimes they slept in barns. On some occasions, they just knocked on strangers' doors, and lo and behold, people invited them in for the night and for supper. That kind of serendipity was characteristic of the groups that he took to Ireland, and the students loved it. And those continue today. In fact, one group just returned from a 3-week course in Northern Ireland. I'll risk a little story here. I was teaching the Divine Comedy by Dante, reading the Inferno, and in the Inferno, the Latin poet Virgil leads Dante through the underworld, through the Inferno, through hell. And somewhere in the middle of our study, a student who had been with John in Ireland said, if I were going on a trip through hell, I would want John Fisher. After retirement, their interest in peace really blossomed. Some of us will remember that at one point in 1995, College Mennonite Church approved a Peace Ministries Center at Goshen College, and even gave it an office down the hall where they had a library and a desk and rooms for meetings and so on. And it was intended for area pacifists, Mennonite, brethren in Christ. And to some extent, it was successful. In 1995, when it was created, John and Pauline were the coordinators for that program in that office for its first 3 years. Then they continued to be active, very, very active in Seniors for Peace, that activist group locally, and in giving Just Peace seminars. Raise your hand if you were part of Seniors for Peace. Okay. Yes. So it's a vivid memory among some of us. And I wonder what happened. There's always been seniors, and I think Seniors for Peace at Goshen College Church, but no more. Well, we have a younger generation, don't we, in the Mennonite Action Group. So things change. Anyway, John and Pauline were very prominent in that movement in the Goshen area. Well, you will have other memories, and I hope you bring them out. But certainly, John and Pauline Fisher represent the best of us, and lives very well spent.
Thank you so much, Irvin.
Speaking of Mennonite Action, we are meeting the 3rd Tuesday from 12 to 1 here in the church. And it's an hour-long
You can come and go, but it's a planned time.
So there was one this last week.
There was one this last week. We try to have it publicized in the newsletter.
We'll be hearing more about that in some upcoming classes when we have Anabaptist, the church's theme of Anabaptist values or
The month of August.
the month of August. Not all of you have visited the Terrace, I've learned, or knew where it was. We're going to spend some time there. There's some chairs, not a lot. So Marty chose two of the poems that are there to read here. And then we will go to the Terrace. Did I say plaza? Terrace. And Kirby is going to read Julia Pastor's poem and Jude Seamus Haynes' poem, just for an introduction to what I think is one of the most beautiful places on campus. Marty.
You will see these poems on posts out there at the. I'm projecting, okay? You will see the poems out there on posts. I chose A Summer Day by Mary Oliver, who was born in Ohio on September 10th, 1935, and died in Florida on January 17, 2019. Her poetry is largely focused on nature and the purpose of life. She was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 1987. The Summer Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and be blessed, how to stroll through fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? The other one is called The Pasture by Robert Frost, surely one of the better known American poets. He was born in San Francisco and died in Boston. I find it quite interesting that his poems were actually first published in the UK rather than in the US. He died in 1963 and is buried in Bennington, Vermont. Several years ago, John and I visited his house in Vermont and then went to the gravesite. And the words on his tombstone have stuck with me. They are, he had a lover's quarrel with the world. This is called The Pasture, and it's very short. I'm going out to clean the pasture spring. I'll only stop to rake the leaves away and wait to watch the water clear I may. I shan't be gone long. You come too. I'm going out to fetch the little calf, standing by the mother. It's so young it totters when she licks it with her tongue. I shan't be gone long. You come too.
That has been turned into a song, which I have sung.
Oh, sing it.
The Astral World Society. I can't sing it.
Well, we'll remember that. Well, shall those who are able and interested walk to Fisher Terrace? Oh, did I make another announcement?
One more announcement, I brought a bag of towels. So that they're metal out there, those of you who need to sit, I'll fix bag and everybody will walk off. They are wet.
Thank you. Great. Just one other thing to, an announcement came to all Sunday school classes from the Stewardship Commission. Becky Horst made a general announcement. It included some figures for us, like 188,000 shortfall for the current year's budget. Whatever.
I like the line in that one poem about beating down the grass. The thing I always, I do that. My problem is getting back. Yeah. I've been the top of the thank you. You get to go back.
Something you said, I didn't. Thinking about. And if you write.
I don't think I.
Yeah, yeah. The house.
Yes. I can. That second. Yeah, I've been. That's so much. Very nice. Thank you for. I never had the opportunity to really get to know John like the rest of you, and I'm sorry I didn't. Never. That's what I was. At a poetry group.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna be.
I think she's.
I'll remember that, Carl. We're in our mid-80s, so.
Nice.
I was just asking about her incident.
And then Ab. And
Same thing.
So. Your
we haven't made any.
That's the first person that ever called me Mr. Smooker. Yeah. And then.
To grass or things.
And George just remembers his dad was speaker was in.
Very different.
And
You know.
says, "I don't know, you're getting along." You know what you want. Well, that's true. I mean, so anyhow.
Certainly looked at you when
We're not on the list at all yet. And so we've got.
And then.
We've had that.
And I want to confirm, was it?
Different place, right? That's, of course, yeah. Right. Yeah,
Not a problem.
that's the first
What
I-
is the best way? Just I'll drop it off. in the
Geneva
box?
was down for lunch then.
I didn't
It's
realize
the first
that.
I talked with her for years.
That's fine.
Yeah, it was just last
I
week.
wasn't sure what
Yeah,
that
she's,
was.
yeah.
Very.
Well, good luck.
for them.
Good luck. That's what she
Thank you
said.
for another news. No, next time we connect before the Sunday, I'll also give you a hello. Good to see you. Not only a book.
All right.
Hi,
Hello.
Phyllis.
Well, a different kid comes every so often.
Yeah, I know. So I'm the eldest. I'm Bill. I'm the local one.
Oh, are you local?
I'm the local one. He's Terrace. Yeah, yeah. I'm retiring in a week. That's my latest job. So I'm watching folks like you ahead of me, you know, and, okay, how do they?
That's it all figured out.
Yeah. Things that I want to talk.
Am I doing good? The best I can for my age.
No, we're all heading the same direction. Aren't we? Yeah, we're not planning to make them. I mean, my wife still, she's first in a part-time pastoral and spiritual director, so she's a bit younger than I am, so she's actively involved. I'll say actively involved, but it'll be my choice now, you know, I don't have to be out there when it's so cold and hot like this week. You know, well, I'm grateful to be raised by them and the community of Hyde Park, that's where we grew up. That was I would have, in terms of Goshen High School and then Goshen College 1 year and then out west and Purdue University. And yeah, yeah. Good memories.
Which is thesis at a Quaker college. And you probably have heard of it, but.
Friends.
Friends University.
Yeah, that's what.
What you're into.
If you were going you wouldn't even know. I bet that's a Quaker.
Yeah.
Good seeing you folks.
Yeah.
Ron Farlow's able to lead us at the website. So she's leading me, and it's leading me.
Oh, wonderful.
So that works out very well.
Very good.
And we can use the restroom here. And we'll want to use the restroom, and we may the restroom, so.
If you want me to read it.
Yes, that was it.
Okay.
Waterford.
Oh, right.
What's on this wall regularly?
No, but, lovely. Well, what shall we start with? It so happens that I didn't think about this. So once I looked it up, to be read out here are at the extreme ends. One's over here. Many of you may know or have read Julia Spiker Castor's poems. She's known internationally for her poetry, and Amy's poem is
over on this end. I asked June, you want to start? And you may have it on your phone, or if people want to see where it is, to gather round. I have it here. You have it there, okay, however, if you want to see the words, how these are inscribed, it's over here at the far end. Go for it.
Phyllis asked me to read this because I'm a loud mouth.
Well, I thought a book can project.
That's a different way of saying it. This poem is over there. It's called Postscript, and that's helpful to know because this starts with an and, so something has gone ahead of it. By Seamus Heaney. Postscript. And sometime make the time to drive west into County Clare along with the flaggy shore in September or October when the wind and the light are working off each other so that the ocean on one side is wild with foam and glitter, and inland among the stones, the surface of a slate gray lake is lit by the earthing lightning of a flock of swans, their feathers ruffed and ruffling, white on white, their fully grown, headstrong looking heads tucked or cresting or busy underwater. Useless to think you'll park and capture it more thoroughly. You are neither here nor there. A hurry through which known and strange things pass, as big, soft buffetings come at the car sideways and catch the heart of off guard and blow it open.
Julia began her college education here at Goshen while Myrna's father, J. Lawrence Burkholder, was president. And the poem is a conversation between the two of them. And as she was a student in the English department, Kirby would read that.
Phyllis, the post is obscuring your voice. Can you just back up and project a little more?
No, that doesn't help.
I can do that, Marty. Thanks for reminding me.
You should have interrupted. You could have interrupted me. So this poem is a conversation between Julia and J. Lawrence Burkholder, a student and the college president, about her. She was getting
Restless.
restless. That's the word. Thank you. About her time as a student at Goshen College. So, Kirby, and projection we knew would be difficult out here. We don't have microphones, and the wonderful poem is there to read at any time. Go ahead.
Playing lesson. Over a tray of spent plates, I confessed to the college president my plans to go east to New York, which I've not really seen. So it seemed the right place for a sophomore and sullen and restless as I had become on that merciless western plain. He slowly stroked a thin cup and described the nights when a theology teacher in Boston, he'd fly a tiny plane alone out over the ocean, each time pressing farther into the dark until the last moment when he turned toward the coast's bright spine. How he loved the way the city glittered beneath him as he glided gracefully toward it, engine gasping, fuel needle dead on empty. The way sweat dampened the back of his neck when he climbed from the cockpit, giddy. Buttoned up in my cardigan, young, willing to lose everything. How could I see generosity of warning? But now that I'm out here, his advice comes so clear. Fling yourselves farther and a bit further each time. But darling, don't draw.
Thank you for coming. This is the end of what we have planned. So you're welcome to leave, to stay here, to whatever. But
I might add that we are happy to have a daughter-in-law who is the child of John and Pauline. And their son, one of their three sons, is Peter, who has poetry as his specialty. Here, teaching at Goshen College, but 2 years right now at Reed College in Portland, Oregon. We'll see whether he turns that.
Well, I think Peter went to University of Virginia to study and earn a PhD in English. And when he got there, he kept dropping the names of these Irish poets. And they couldn't believe that he knew them. And that was a boost for him. That's the fourth generation of English teachers.
in that band,
Well,
band.
But there's a scientist in that family.
This isn't dramatic, but in those days, I used to do exit interviewing, and I did Julia Castor's exit interview. We had an interesting conversation, although that's all private and it's a record. After 2 years, did she go, or after 2 years? Yeah. Well, I forgot, but that's what she said, yeah.
But some of you aren't familiar with her poetry. Google her names to find the names of the books. She's really wonderful. One of the wonderful Mennonite poets. I'm looking at you, Sally Joe, and your piece is one of them too, who led us several months ago in creating a poem, The Raven, which we're going to return to at times in the future.
One of my memories of Miss Haney coming to Goshen College at the invitation of John Fisher was the jealousy that was aroused at Indiana University. If this important Irish poet comes to America, why Goshen College? Why not some prominent place like the University of Indiana? How do you remember some of that? One element was that he was in residence at University of Notre Dame that year also. Nevertheless, it was a friendly visit. One other interesting thing about Seamus Haney, me and Susan now have a cat named Seamus.
During our years in Ireland, John and Pauline visited us on several occasions. And I remember particularly one, we were heading toward the North Antrim coast, and we stopped at a restaurant, and the four of us sat together around that restaurant and read Seamus Haney's poems. And then we continued our journey over to the loch where Seamus Haney's home was, and we spent several hours there. A quick person to introduce Irish poets, I think, to the Mennonite world as much as anybody.
Very much so.
I was a child, grew up in Eastern Pennsylvania, and Pauline's father and my father were good friends. They were both bankers, and so I on many occasions I was there in their home but I don't remember much about Pauline. She was that much older than I was, and I was younger at the time, and so, but I do remember the family in the home. Pauline spoke very much with affection, but yet sort of a resistance to the conservativeness of Eastern Pennsylvania. So she dealt with those two things all of her life. But we loved her dearly. They were certainly picked up Seniors for Peace after Atlee Beachy died, and then they sort of passed that mantle on to Neil and myself, and we carried it for several years until we no longer.
I have one. John Fisher would reach out to anybody, anywhere. So the story is secondhand to me. John Fisher one time was wandering, went into an Irish pub, sat down to have a glass and rest. And someone else, an older man who was there, said to him, "You're an American, right?" Yeah. They said, "Well, where are you from in America?" He said, "Well, I don't know if you know where the state of Indiana is. It's about 100 miles east of Chicago." And the man said, "Well, where is that?" And he said, "Well, it's a small town that is named Goshen, Indiana." And he said, "Is that close to South Bend?" And John was surprised. He said, "Yeah, we're just about 25 miles from South Bend." He said, "Well, my son is an eye surgeon in South Bend. And it's connected to me because that surgeon had, when I had PCAP threatened, that surgeon had repaired my eye for me." But John came back and said, "I met your father in Irish pub. He looked him up himself." Small world.
There are many beauties that can be spoken of out of this event today, including the memory that we're making about communicating without electronics, person to person, and that is an important aspect of who we are. And our new woo-woo person will keep us in touch wonderfully. And another wonderful thing is we're doing this without tuition. But we also heard that we can also put our tuition to the end of June. Thing. So I just express my appreciation for being part of Sojourners.
I'd like to go back to Phyllis's early thing about keeping connected. Last Friday, Amos asked me to have coffee with him. Amos Burkholder. And Amos and Ann were thinking of coming here today, and we weren't able to, but they follow on Facebook or on Zoom. And even though they haven't been able to be here for almost 2 years because of a whole series of things, they want to feel connected. I hope they do come. They didn't come today as they thought they might. They probably will at some point.
I hope they were able to hear this today because they're poetry lovers too. For many years, we were in a small group together, and Amos, he's a musician, for those of you who don't know him, but he would recite poetry for us.
Oh.
Yeah, recite from memory. So
they would have liked to be here.
Yeah.
I know.
The Seniors for Peace are still meeting down at the courthouse on Wednesdays at noon for a half hour. Even though they're not Seniors for Peace anymore, that core group is still meeting.
Actually, everybody's Seniors for Peace, right around the circle.
How many years have you been going to the courthouse?
since 2003 at least. It was with the start of the Iraq War. I believe it started when with the Iraq War. Yeah. The U.S.
So Donna and Catherine, both of you go every
I
Wednesday.
don't go every Wednesday, but we go, Janet and Mark are
Oh,
going.
you go?
Not every Wednesday.
Oh, great.
But one of the people, you and I, we visit several churches that we meet here. I saw that East Canada, I looked in my bulletin, and I saw a statement. And I said, oh, this kind of feels like home. And then I saw your welcoming statement. It was on the back page.
Well, Seniors Are Peace began that in the book.
That's
We
what
did
I
it for
thought.
years, yeah.
That's what I thought.
I would say one of the things about Seamus Haney, his famous poem is about his father would dig deep. Remember that poem at all? And it ends, my father dug with the shovel, but I dig with the pen. And I think many of you around the circle dig with the pen.
I know about I was in University of Warwick in England for a sabbatical, and Rooney was a guest speaker. So I was
You found that.
I ended up going to sermon discussion. We spent the whole time.
College, 1962, I was asked by John to be the student assistant. So I was taking his course in communication. And one memory I have is going into his office, was looking at the stacks of books and papers on the floor. And I thought, how on earth can he ever find what he wants? He had no trouble finding exactly what he wanted when he wanted it. One time his office was so full that he had to meet a student in a nearby office. Maybe that's why he didn't finish his dissertation.
So he told me about the dissertation that he lost it on the train.
That's what we.
Yeah, that's what he told me, that he was traveling in Europe on the train and he lost his dissertation on the train. Now, you know, maybe that's a story. Doesn't have to be a historical event.
I think it's true.
I don't think many people lose dissertations on trains.
But that was a different, I mean, yeah, dissertations are written now and stored on a computer and, well, it's a good story.
It's a good story, yeah.
Well, I'm also realizing, as I said, how fortunate we've been over the years for the English department. You know, we've got two members